You are listening to Seeds of Revolution, Daughters of the Whirlwind podcast. The revolution is live.
All right. So I'm Dr. Asantewa Sunni-Ali.
And I'm Aiyisha T. Obafemi.
And Princess Mdaiyah is out today handling some very important matters on the land. So you won't be hearing her voice today. But this episode, we're diving right into a very important conversation. And we're excited to introduce to you our special guest, pioneer, respected luminary, media resource, entrepreneur, and ancestor advocate, Dr. Gina Paige, who in 2003 co-founded African Ancestry, pioneering a new way of tracing African lineages, using genetics, and a new marketplace for people of African descent looking to more accurately and reliably trace their ancestry. Dr. Paige has been featured in hundreds of media outlets. She travels around the world demystifying African roots. She's worked with and revealed the roots of the world's leading icons and is a go-to resource for African diaspora communities, including embassies and government entities. There's so much more about Dr. Paige, which we hope you will learn throughout this conversation today. But with that, we would like to welcome Dr. Gina Paige.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm so happy to be on here with you all. I don't know what to do.
We're happy to have you.
Yes, we are. And
Thank you.
during this month of recognizing International Black Women's History, we are honored to speak with you about your vital work and the unique history that you've made.
So we saw that this year, African Ancestry celebrates 20 years. And
can you believe it?
Yes, 20
That's,
years.
yeah.
How, can you believe it? How do you feel about
No.
that? So we want to know.
It's incredible.
We want to know, like, what are you most proud of about this journey, and what impact would you like to have over the next 20 years?
It's hard to choose one thing to be most proud of, but I'll say the thing that I've been sitting with most recently is just the basics, the basic impact that we've had. So over 1 million people now know, Black people now know where in Africa they come from because of our work. That means that there are people who know the names of African countries. There are people who know the names of African ethnic groups or tribes. There are people who now understand that Africa is a continent and not a country. Just the basic things that I have taken for granted for my entire life. We've enlightened scores of people on those basics, and I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely.
The other thing, if I could choose two, the other thing is just having maintained and grown a business for that long, and a business that is not mainstream, that is not popular, and that is focused on helping Black people get something that they need rather than something that they want. I'm very proud of that.
And you should be. Quite an accomplishment.
Thank
What
you.
is the age range for consumers using African Ancestry?
You know, we've tested babies up to somebody who's 104. So anybody of any age can take our test. But in terms of the people who seem to be the most interested in the work, I would say are people between the ages of 45 and maybe 64. And then the next largest group would be people 35 to 44.
Okay, and so in what ways do you think we can get young people more involved?
You know, I think it's just exposure, to be honest. Because young people are we all are heavily influenced by trends, but probably even more so when we're younger. I think it's just a matter of exposure and showing them they're already engaged in like the music, right, and the fashion.
Right.
They are more and more exposed to Africa every day and see the similarities between our cultures through those two media. So if we were able to get in through that way, I think we'd be able to then show them how they can make their own personal, tangible connection to the continent.
Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that you've had an extensive kind of experience with various media outlets and like speaking to that exposure piece, because one of the follow-up questions I was going to ask you about, celebrating the 20 years is how you were able to sustain the business. And I think that you responded to some of that through exposure, right? And getting folks interested. Did you want to say any more about that?
Yeah, I would say that it definitely has been the work of the ancestors, honestly. Like, I hope that doesn't sound trite to people, but it really, really has been. The thing that put us on the map after being in business for 15 years was when Chadwick Boseman was on the Breakfast Club and talked about his AfricanAncestry.com experience and how it impacted him. And that's when it really took off. And so it was the convergence of the film, the biggest film to impact us globally as Black folks coming out, with T'Challa himself, with the platform like the Breakfast Club, with us being prepared and having only recently started doing Facebook ads. All of those things came together at the same time, and that's not a coincidence. That's the ancestors. And then the other part of it is just the community and word of mouth. That's how we've grown, and that's how we've sustained. People who've taken the test, who tell their friends, who invite us on their podcast like you all have, who who go hard for us in the paint on social media. They have helped us to establish the credibility that is needed when you are doing this kind of work. That's so important. It really is a movement.
Right.
And when you're building a movement, as you all know with Seeds of Revolution, you need the credibility that the community provides you in order for people to even pay attention. In the face of these major players in the industry that came into the industry after we did, years after we did, that have tried to co-opt our messaging and our work.
Absolutely. And so with that, what do you think continues to distinguish African Ancestry from other platforms and other kind of genetics testing companies? We stand apart from the other companies the same way today as we did in 2003 when we started. Well, actually, we stood apart when we started because they weren't there. But, right. Yeah, you pioneered
the main thing, right, exactly. The main thing today is that we don't sell or share our customers' genetic information. So we don't monetize our customers' DNA at all.
Right.
Like the other companies do. We don't sell it, we don't share it, we don't research it, we destroy it. Which from a business perspective is probably, your listeners would be questioning it. But from a cultural and a spiritual perspective, it's absolutely the right thing to do. We're still, 20 years later, the only company that can give you specific ancestry answers down to the present-day African country and ethnic group that your people came from before Georgia, before Mississippi, before Haiti, before Cuba, wherever, right? And then we're still the only Black-owned, Black-founded, Black-funded, Black woman-led company doing this work. So those are three of the main ways that we stand apart, and we're able to thrive because we have the largest collection of African DNA samples in the industry still. So,
Wonderful work.
Yes. And when you talked about it, it made me think about tracing our ancestry back and doing that during the pandemic. Which is, was
way
a time
back in 2020.
Right. But I just felt like it was the time.
Too, because you were waiting to be able to get your father's to him. Yeah,
yes.
that was a long wait, and you finally did it. It was like,
yes. But yeah, doing that was it meant everything. Like
amazing.
It was coming back and finding out our tribe. So on our maternal line, we are the Takar
of
Cameroon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing to find that out. And I can't wait to go to Cameroon and actually get to meet some of the family. I know you were just in Cameroon too, Gina.
I know, I was about to say, and you all know, but your listeners may not know that the Tikar are the artists and the artisans of the community. So I was not at all surprised when your results came back Tikar. But yes, we were just there, and we were in many different regions where the Tikar people are present and thriving, and getting to see the culture and the impact is something that is going to be so transformative for you when you have the chance to go. Hopefully you'll come with us.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
We'll have to plan that.
Let us know.
That would be amazing to do.
So you talked about African Ancestry being Black woman-led, and I know that you have had extensive travels all over the world, and particularly on the continent of Africa. And in thinking about the theme of this month of International Black Women's History, could you talk about maybe some of the common threads that you've seen or noticed in your research or just in your experience in travel across the lived experiences of Black women? Like specifically, how do you see Black women in the various places that you go continuing to make global history and also change?
So in the places that I've traveled across Africa specifically, there's so many similarities between women across the African diaspora. I mean, we really are the same people in terms of the way we command presence when we are in social environments, political environments, business environments, the way that we are maybe generally not the ones who are the leaders at the table, not the recognized leaders, I'll say, but the ones who are making every single thing happen.
Right.
That is exactly the same. And sometimes, you think it might be because of the religious systems of the country, or that there may be other reasons for it, but it really doesn't matter, because regardless of religion, regardless of industry, regardless of social status, I would say, we are, if we're not the ones that are leading the meeting or leading the ministry, we are the ones who are making all of the things happen, and that the male leaders are relying on. I know that when it comes to family, women are playing the exact same role. So I think in general, across the board, women are the ones that are pushing for change and making change happen, but often behind the scenes.
Right.
That's what I would say.
So yeah, being foundational to all of these entities that they're a part of. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So Gina, I have a question for you. Why should Africans in the diaspora want to trace their African roots?
Africans in the diaspora should want to trace their African roots, because if you don't know where your roots are, if you don't know where you're from, then there is a humongous void in your understanding of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when we didn't have the knowledge, when we didn't have the ability to know specifically where we came from, we saw people who were just making decisions, like giving themselves Swahili names,
mm-hmm.
for example, or just adopting a country and deciding that that's the country that they feel the most, the country that resonates with them the most. They feel the closest connection to, and rocking with that. But everybody else on this planet knows their roots.
Mm-hmm.
They can find and if they don't know them, they can figure them out from their last names. They can go on these sites. They can go into the archives and do the research. And we should do those things too. But those tools aren't going to get us back to the essence of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Africa has the most resources,
mm-hmm.
natural resources, human resources. Africa is the heart of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And those are our roots. Mm-hmm. We have roots in the most powerful land in the world. And you should, if you claim that ancestry, if you identify those roots, then you tap into a power that wouldn't be available to you otherwise. And those are the things that make us stand apart from the rest of the world. Everything we do, I'm going off on a tangent now, but let me just say this.
Go on.
Everything that we use, everything that we study, everything that we enjoy has its roots in Africa.
Absolutely.
And that's where we're from.
Mm-hmm.
So if everything started there, then that means we by default are the most powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you tap into the details of that power, you'll be more successful as a person individually. You'll be more successful in your family. You'll be more successful in your community. And so that's why they should do it.
Yes.
Let me step back down and come back down.
No, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. And in teaching Africana studies, that's one of the things that we, make sure to impart to students, that learning about Africa is not just learning Black history. You're learning world history. You're learning about, civilizations that created the world as we know it, right? That set a pace and set a standard, that created, the toothbrush, color therapy, way back in ancient Kemet. So you're absolutely right that it's even beyond the self-discovery. You're learning about, you're enhancing your education about the world and how the world came to be. So thank you.
And you know
that.
what else? It's an act of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
This is our birthright that was stolen from us, and it was stolen from us for a very specific reason.
Absolutely.
The disconnection was intentional, and we're still disconnected, and that's why there's just so much craziness in our lives and in our world. And so we weren't supposed to know, and now we can. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't you take back something that's stolen from you? When your identity is stolen, you fight to get it back. Mm-hmm. Well, our identities were stolen, and taking an AfricanAncestry.com test to find out your specific African roots is how you get your identity back.
Absolutely. So we have a segment in our podcast entitled The People Want to Know. And it's where we kind of field questions from folks who just write into us with questions that they'd like us to answer. So we have a few for you related to African ancestry.
Okay, what do the people want to know?
So the people want to know, is it real? And how do people, so it is African Ancestry, the genetics testing, and how do people know that the findings are factual?
Yes, it's real. Mm-hmm. We've been here for 20 years, so obviously it's based on something. Our research, our scientific research, was peer-reviewed in multiple science journals. And then we rely on DNA genetic testing for the veracity of so many other things that there's no reason to believe that in this case, when it's something that is designed to empower and enhance our lives, spiritually, psychologically, culturally, that it would not be true.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Another question that people want to know. What's the estimated cost for an average family to trace their African ancestry?
So the good news about our test is that it only takes one test to get answers for an entire branch of your family tree. So I'll use your family as an example. When Aiyisha, when you took the test to trace your mother's line going back 500 to 2,000 years, those results are the same for everyone in your family who descends from your mother, who descends from your grandmother, who descends from your great-grandmother. So that's all of you who are living today and all the future generations of those descendants. And one test is $299. Now, if you want to trace the ancestries of multiple branches of your family tree, for example, in your family, Aiyisha, when we traced your father's paternal ancestry, father to father to father, going back, then that's a second test that's required, and there are discounts when you purchase more than one test. So if you get one test, they're $299, and if you were to get two tests, they would be $275 each.
Okay.
And I might add, because those same people might want to know, why does it cost so much? But it's cheaper than a pair of designer shoes. It's cheaper than a pair of Jordans. It's cheaper than those bags we carry, than the nights out at concerts or at dinner. So there's a value associated with the information and the fact that we are not selling or sharing your DNA.
Right. And it's priceless. Like, it is absolutely priceless. On my father's side, we did the African Ancestry test as well. And this is one thing that I'll share with the people that want to know, is that as a family, we all contributed to the pot. And so if you have a family that's interested, once everybody chips in a little bit here and there, you can reach, that total amount to cover that cost. And so it doesn't have to be a burden on one individual. So the last question that we chose that the people want to know is that if Africans in the diaspora were to go back to Africa today to become a part of a nation, where would be an ideal place for them to go?
Oh, wow. Well, Africans in the diaspora are flocking to Ghana right now. And they are buying property. They are investing in businesses. They are joining scores of expats, our elders who have been there for decades. And so I would say Ghana is a good place to consider because it's an English-speaking country, because there is a large African-American expat community there already. And Ghana is the gateway to West Africa, and so they're very welcoming. I would also say that in the country of Sierra Leone, which is also in West Africa, they now offer citizenship to people who take our test and receive Sierra Leonean results, the Mende people, the Temini people, the Limba people, and the such. And so having citizenship in a country makes it much easier for you to go home and to do those things, to invest, buy property, establish homes, and that kind of thing. I think that, and they also are English-speaking countries. So I would say for us, the places that people feel very much at home are in West African countries, and those would be two places that would be ideal. I also know that there are a number of people who are enjoying their lifestyles in East Africa, in countries like Kenya, which, have very, what will I say? I don't want to say it the wrong way, but who have well-developed cities, and you can go to places that are familiar because they're similar to what we experience here in the U.S. from an urban perspective. So yeah, those are my recommendations.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. We appreciate you taking this time to spend with us today and answering some very important questions that I'm sure our listeners needed the answers to. So we're going to close out the interview, but I would like to ask you how people can keep up with you and follow you and what's going on with African Ancestry. So if you could tell us both.
Sure. So you can follow us at AfricanAncestry.com. We're on Instagram at African Ancestry, YouTube at African Ancestry DNA, Facebook. And I encourage you to follow us and to join our email list because we're in the middle of a world tour. So to celebrate our 20th anniversary, we're traveling to 16 cities in 8 countries on 4 continents.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a lot, but it's exciting. And so we're going to be in cities like Oakland and Atlanta, Charlotte, Brooklyn, Chicago, Houston. We already did DC. So we'll be in a city near you, most likely, and we'd love to have the Seeds of Revolution family join us in the cities where they are.
Absolutely.
And so all that information is on our socials and on our website.
Well, thank you so much. And you guys heard it here, AfricanAncestry.com. Be sure to keep up with what's going on, where they will be next in a city near you, so you can learn more and find out more and know your roots, know where you come from.
Begin your journey of self-discovery, of ancestral discovery. It is vital. It's vital.
And it's amazing.
Yes.
Can I just say thank you all? Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for this podcast and for the work that you do individually and collectively. I really do appreciate it. And I, of course, have made myself one of your honorary sisters.
Yes, you are.
Revolution.
We love you so much, Gina. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. We appreciate you. What a joy that was.
Yes.
Having Dr. Gina Paige.
So amazing.
Yeah, I've been enjoying just following that journey of African ancestry since I was introduced to it a very short while ago, 2020, during the pandemic. So thanks again to Gina for sharing your energy and your knowledge and experience with us.
Yes, we appreciate you.
So continuing along the theme of the people want to know, we had a few other questions that we wanted to just take a few minutes to address. And we'll start with one question, and that is how to decolonize the Black mind. That's a big one.
Very big.
And I think we spoke to it, in the conversation with Dr. Paige. And that is, beginning with knowledge of self.
Yes.
Knowledge of self. And because this person said the Black mind in particular, as African people, we know that we hail from the continent of Africa.
Right. So
that knowledge of self, it can begin. I mean, you can decide where it begins in terms of your current, identities that you hold, whether that be socioeconomic, your geographic identity, your family, your immediate family, but uncovering and understanding, the roots that hail from the continent of Africa, is a start, is a something that you can just continue to do until the day that you take your last breath, because there's so much to uncover. There's so much to learn. There's so much that has been, as Dr. Paige articulated, deliberately hidden, from us, and deliberately distorted also. So it's a lifetime. I'll just start with that, is that, decolonizing the Black mind is an endeavor that you'll be engaged with for the duration of your lifetime. If you decide to embark on that journey, just as we said before, with the journey of, finding balance for oneself, that's a lifelong endeavor.
It is.
And it starts with knowledge of self and knowledge of the birthplace of humanity.
Yes.
And that is the continent of Africa.
That's right. Very important.
Mm-hmm. And so the other question, I'm such a professor too. There's so much more that could be said on that. What I'll do is I'll put together a little reading list, and you can follow our Daughters of the Whirlwind Facebook page and/or Seeds of Revolution, and I'll post it there. We'll come together actually as the daughters and put together something for folks.
Yes.
The other question is, what are your thoughts on the term woke? And do you think this term is being used as a racial slur?
Oh, I don't think it's being used as a racial slur. I wouldn't go that far. Mm-hmm. But I think it's being used a lot just because people like the way it sounds, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, what does it really mean to be woke? Mm-hmm. And I'm saying that, a little facetiously. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm woke. Does that mean you woke up this morning? Mm-hmm. Does that mean that you are awakened after yesterday, last night? Mm-hmm. What does it really mean? Mm-hmm. To be woke in the way that I think it's trying to be used, or the way it was asked, is to have knowledge of self, knowledge of what's happening in the world, knowledge of things that people are doing that try to diminish your ability to be and stay woke. Yeah, it means a lot. It could mean a lot of things. But I don't think everybody fully grasps what it means to truly be woke. Like we like to say that we are. But you can't be woke without being informed, without studying, without talking, without learning something new every day. Like, you can be a woke individual in your mind, but there's always something for you to learn. Nobody, is so smart that they can't learn something from talking to someone, from reading a book, from listening to people, listening to podcasts, listening to speeches, listening, to, leaders that we had, years ago that are still impacting our lives today. A lot of things that were talked about, during the civil rights era and different things, all of these things still apply today. But it's just a matter of how people choose to deal with it, and how we're learning and how we're teaching our children as well. And I think a part of that question too, the person asked if the term was being co-opted, and I think you're right on point, Aiyisha, with just the fact that people are defining woke in so many different ways. And everybody has a different definition of what it is. Right. Because certainly, I know you and I are 16 years apart. Right. But we still came up, together. Yes. And I know coming up, we may have used it differently, but I know that we had a mutual understanding of what it meant coming up. And then, like around maybe 10 years ago or so. And then certainly most recently it shifted and it's become co-opted. Right. And I think so many woke folks. Yes. And so many folks using it, and it's a part of, popular culture now.
And I think what this person is possibly referring to, because they talked about it possibly being a dog whistle in the political arena. I do think in some ways it is being used as a synonym for black, or a synonym for people who have consciousness around, diversity, around equity, around, transformative justice, people who are actively seeking to challenge the status quo and create, a new way of being, a new way of living, and new systems. So in that regard, yes, I think it is being used. It's being co-opted and it's being used to challenge, and even in some ways dismantle, programs. Mm-hmm. There's a new bill in Ohio, for example, that's very loaded in terms of utilizing that term and attempting to prevent programs like Africana studies, programs like ethnic studies, sexuality and gender studies from even existing. Yeah. And they're utilizing that term woke as a way to say that, we don't want students to be woke.
Right.
And going back to some of the definitions that you provided, yes, we do. Right. We want people in the world to be conscious. Mm-hmm. And that is the purpose of education. Is to awaken people, to have people think, think critically, and to have new ways of being and looking at life and understanding the world around them. So, that's what I think is happening. Some of what is happening with the term woke.
I agree.
So thank you so much for these questions. We will be asking out again to get some more questions from you all, but thank you so much for, engaging with us and asking these very important questions. We always look forward to them.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
We want to thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you. Mm-hmm. And thank you for your time.
Yes.
You have been listening to Seeds of Revolution, Daughters of the Whirlwind podcast.
See you next time.
Yay. Peace and love.
Look for me in the world.